Hello, students. Newton and I are here to explain biotic diseases. This is Newton. He seems to want to be here. All right. Biotic means caused by some kind of biology, caused by some kind of living organism. Could be a fungus, a virus, bacteria, although we don't consider viruses to truly be living. Because they are totally dependent on the host to be able to replicate. All right, let's keep going here. So for a disease to occur, you need the host, in this case your crop plant or landscape plant. You need a suitable environment, suitable for the pathogen and development of the disease, and the pathogen. So the pathogen is the organism that causes the disease. So we'll talk about susceptible hosts. This can vary with the species, or disease can vary a great deal with species, with cultivar, and with time of year. Host might be susceptible one time a year, but not another. So the fungi are eukaryotic, multicellular organisms, and they digest food outside of the body, and then that nutrition is absorbed through their cell walls and cell membranes. Bacteria are single-celled organisms that can cause disease. They are prokaryotic and do not have a nucleus. Nematodes are microscopic worms, or at least the ones that attack plants are microscopic worms. Viruses are particles made of DNA or RNA. The coronavirus is an RNA virus. And then they are surrounded by a protein coat. Occasionally there's a lipid membrane, but not always. And then environment, temperature and water are the biggest things, and then occurrence of the vector. So in this current epidemic, we can think of the people that are non-symptomatic carriers. We can think of them as vectors. Right? So a vector is a third organism that carries the disease, carries the pathogen, but does not cause the disease. When all three things are present, susceptible host, pathogen, and favorable environment, that's when disease occurs. So you can have the host and the pathogen, but if you don't have the favorable environment, then the disease is not going to occur. That's why we use that disease triangle, even though sometimes it seems kind of silly. So one example of a disease is early blight of tomato. That's the common name of the disease. So the disease is not the pathogen. The pathogen causes the disease. So early blight of tomato is the common name. It's caused by the fungal pathogen Alternaria solani. So we're using the same genus and species rules as we did with the plants themselves. The favorable environmental condition for early blight is free water on the leaves for something like 12 hours. It doesn't have to be all day, but free water on the leaves, particularly at night, is going to allow the spores to germinate. The symptom is the thing we see, and in this case it's a target-like lesion. The host is the tomato. The pathogen overwinters on diseased tissue from the previous crop. So overwinter is how that pathogen is making it from one growing season to the next. And then the method of spread is splashing rain. Okay. So tomato, here we go. These are the symptoms of early blight on tomato. All right, let's see if we can. So there is that's not a good color. There's a lesion. You can see that it's kind of target shaped, concentric circles. And here we see what happens in a plant in favorable environmental conditions that's not treated or sprayed. So the fungus will destroy, 90% of the plant. And of course, yield is greatly reduced. All right, here we see symptoms. Here you can really see those concentric circles on that lesion. And of course, if the lesion progresses through the stem, then the water supply, the vascular tissue will be cut off in that. Sometimes symptoms in two different diseases can appear pretty similar, and it really takes a trained eye to see the difference. So here we see septoria, leaf blight on tomatoes, and here we see early blight. So if you're looking at these a lot, you'll be able to tell the difference. If not, if you haven't looked at them a lot, then it'll be harder to tell them apart. Both making a small lesion. There are a lot of foliar diseases of tomato. When we say foliar, we mean disease of the leaf. So foliar is disease of the leaf. All right, here's our pathogen. This is the spore, the Alternaria solani spore, and each one of these little cells can germinate and send out a little germ tube. Control measures for this disease include resistant cultivars. I think I've mentioned the Mountain series developed by Randy Gardner, and that back-cross method of developing resistant cultivars. You can use crop rotation or rotate to an unrelated crop. So if we've grown tomatoes and we've seen some disease, the next year we would not grow peppers or potatoes or eggplants. We would go to something like corn or beans, something that is not closely related. All right. Sanitation includes removing crop residue, removing weeds that are closely related to tomato. We can use chemical sprays, and we can use organic methods. We'll be talking about these control methods later on in the IPM section. All right, so types of pathogens include fungi, bacteria, nematodes, viruses. We'll talk about each one of those for a little bit. All right, here is a nematode. So plant parasitic nematodes have what's called a stylet, right? This is the stylet, right? And that is a needle-like mouthpart, and it is pushed into the root of the plant, and the nematode sucks the nutrition out of the root of the plant. All right, so this needle-like mouthpart projects out of the mouth of the nematode. The nematodes that attack plants are all microscopic. At the most, they might look like a tiny piece of lint on some water. There are nematodes that attack humans. Those can be small, some are much larger. The intestinal roundworms that attack mammals are considerably larger. There's another nematode. There's the stylet. So we have several genera of nematodes. They're all roundworms. They're microscopic roundworms. This is the most common, or the most commonly known of the nematodes, and it's called root knot nematode. There's the stylet. There's the esophageal bulb that's going to pump the sap out of the plant. Here we see a female with the head embedded in the root tissue. This is a scanning electron micrograph. All right. Here, these red wiggly lines are nematodes that are completely embedded in the root. And then here we have a female root knot nematode that is feeding off of the root, and she has now turned into an egg sac. So she excreted some hormones that caused the plant to produce these enlarged cells or feeder cells, and those are providing nutrition to her.